Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at making a Barbarian Paladin Multi-Class and then probably adding some more caster on top of that to get higher level spell slots for smites. That's going to be the basic idea. Now I would love to really just make it a Paladin with a Barbarian dip, but the truth is I've kind of done a lot of videos with Paladin as our main chassis to build around a lot. And I kind of just wanted to use Barbarian in this video. And I'm not saying you couldn't do Paladin. Paladin is a great choice, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I've done so many videos with Paladin as our chassis. You know, those, the first 6 levels of Paladin are pretty good. You know, they just are. But the first 5 or 6 levels of Barbarian are pretty good too. I mean, this is the list of abilities that we have by level 5. Rage, Unarmored Defense, Reckless Attack, Dangerous Sense. We're going to have our subclass features, which in this case, I'm probably going to go past the Zealot because the Zealot Barbarian just kind of fits the whole Paladin combination theme. You know, I think there's something nice there. So that would give us Divine Fury for more damage and Warrior of the Gods for free resing for when we die. The ability we hope we never ever need. Level 4, we're going to get our ability score increased just like everybody else. Nothing special there. We're also going to get extra attack at 5, just like all the other marshals. But we're also going to get fast movement for an extra 10 feet of movement speed. So, you know, nothing wrong with that. We're also going to start with 12 hit points at level 1 plus con mod, which is a lot. We can wear medium armor. We could use a shield. I mean, I probably wouldn't. You know, mostly just because if I'm trying to do some damage and I'm using Reckless Attack, I'm probably taking Great Weapon Mastery and using that. I might even try to take Polearm Mastery, but in this build, we could be a little feed hungry. So, you know, I can live without Polearm Mastery in this case because I'm going to be using bonus actions to rage with, you know, and I might not always have that attack available, right? Plus, with Great Weapon Mastery, if I get a killing blow or a crit, I could still make a bonus action attack that way. So, you know, it's not as bad, right? If I can only choose one, I'm definitely going Great Weapon Mastery in this case. If I get both, then even better, right? Anyways, so this is going to be the start of the build. We're going to start Barbarian. We're going to go straight to Barbarian 5 and get extra attack as quickly as possible. At that point, I'm going to move into Paladin, and we're going to start adding some spell slots and smites. So Paladin 2 is what we're really looking at here. And after Paladin 2, we could keep going to Paladin. We could maybe grab, you know, something else. We could even go back to Barbarian. But really, I just want more spell slots, I think. So I'm probably going to leave Paladin at 2 and go into one of the other Charisma casters instead. But we don't have to go that way. The main reason is, though, that, you know, at level 5 Paladin, we're just getting second level spell slots finally. We're not getting extra attack again because we could only get it the first time, right? They're not stacking. So, you know, there are some issues there, right? Going 3 levels of Paladin after 2 to go to 5 could have been 3 levels in a full caster, which would also give us second level spell slots. But then from that point on, the full caster is going to be giving us much faster progression. So I kind of feel like that might be the play. Anyways, Paladin 2. It's going to give us Divine Sense. It's going to give us Lay on Hands, which we can use even while raging. It's not a spell, right? It's going to give us a fighting style, which we'll talk about in a second here. And of course, it's going to give us some spell slots and some smites. But be aware that we are only going to have 2 first level spell slots at the beginning, which is not a lot of smiting power. I mean, it's still pretty good if we get a crit against like an undead or something like that, or a fiend, right? You know, we can drop a first level spell slot and that's still going to do a good chunk of damage. You know, but we're probably going to be saving them for, you know, either big boss fights or really tough fights which are not going our way, or big crits when we kind of needed a big crit, right? And of course, we can't choose when we're going to get a big crit, so, you know, whatever. And like I said, that's not too bad. Now, as for where to go after Paladin 2, and, oh, by the way, that's one thing I like about this build. I mean, 5 Barbarian Paladin 2, we're only level 7 character, right? We still probably, even in an average campaign, if we go to like 10 or 12, somewhere in that range, that does give us a chance to pick up a decent number of levels in another class, right? So that's not too bad. We're not looking like a build where you need like 6 of one and 6 of the other or something like that, right? We're looking at 2 Paladin. That's not a huge investment. So as far as the other casters go, I mean, I would love to be able to go War Cleric at this point, because again, that just seems so thematic to me with this idea of this like martial zealot. Of course, as you already know what I'm going to say next, the problem with that is that then we need wisdom, and we're already needing strength and charisma, plus we're a frontline melee fighter. We're going to need constitution on top of this, and you know, adding wisdom into the mix is probably a no-go. However, I think I will look, I think my next video might be a Barbarian War Cleric build, and we'll try like, kind of like Zealot 2.0 or Zealot, you know, option B kind of thing, and we'll take a different look at this type of idea. So I think that that'll be, you know, its own video, right? But as far as this, I don't think that it, you know, I just don't think we can really swing a decent wisdom on top of everything else we need. So that really leaves us with 3 classes. We've got our Bard, our Sorcerer, and the Warlock. So all of these have some advantages. You know, Bard could give us Jack of all trades, which is very nice with only 2 level investment. Bard and Sorcerer both have one added advantage, which is that their spell slots are going to stack with the Paladin spell slots. Now, they're not going to stack a lot because we only have 2 levels of Paladin, so that's really only 1 level of spell progression. But, you know, it's not nothing, right? So that might draw me that way. One of the big draws against Sorcerer here, though, is that really the thing I normally want from Sorcerer is meta magic. And if I'm raging, like, meta magic just isn't really doing much for me because I'm just not casting anything. However, it would allow us to convert sorcery points into spell slots, and we could either, you know, replenish a bunch of our smites that we've used, or, I mean, technically you could even like pre-convert. You don't have to just replenish. You could have, you know, extra spell slots stacked up on your regular spell slots. And that's not a bad option. It also only has a d6 hit die though, and I'm on the front line. I probably want to be fairly tanky. I don't know if that's the biggest downside ever, but, you know, it might be something that's at least worth mentioning, right? Like I said, Bard, some decent consideration there as well. But honestly, probably just my own personal bias here, but I'm probably just going to go Warlock. Now, like I said, the packed slots will not stack with the Paladin spell slots. Those are separate categories. But we only have 2 levels of Paladin. Like, if we had 6 levels of Paladin, I think that would be probably a bad move to go into Warlock, because we just have, you know, I mean, that's like 3 full caching progression levels. That's a lot to be, you know, not really syncing up, right? But in this case, with only 2 Paladin, I don't think that's a bad call by any chance. And it would give us the ability to, at Warlock 5, get Eldritch Smite, which can stack with Divine Smite. And yeah, now we're having to use 2 spell slots, but, you know, we did want to smite hard, so why not stack both? That's kind of my go-to thought there. Paladin also would usually be a bit of an issue with Warlock, or Barbarian for that matter, all of them would be, with extra attack not stacking. But because Warlock gets extra attack from an invocation, there is no dead level here with Barbarian 5 and Warlock 5, for example, right? We just don't take that invocation. So, you know, that's not too bad. It also would give us things like Devil Sight, potentially, which would mean that we wouldn't need to worry about having blind fighting. So, you know, again, not too bad. A lot of invocations can also help to give us some nice out-of-combat utility, which I like. And, you know, pretty good stuff. We're already going to be pretty good at fighting just because we've got smites and we're a barbarian. You know, like, hello, we're going to be fine. So adding some invocations to augment some of our out-of-combat utility, I think, is a pretty good choice. So, Warlock. Level 1, we're going to get a Patron. Usually, Hexblade, if you're looking at a melee character, would be your go-to choice. But there's some big drawbacks here where I don't really care about having Hexblade at all. Number 1, Hexblade is going to give us armor, but we've already got those same armor options from Barbarian. In fact, and you know, so not a big deal at all, right? The shield spell, very nice, but if I'm raging, I can't cast it anyway, so again, who really cares? And of course, the biggest draw usually for me, at least, from Hexblade, well, actually we've got Hexblade's Curse as well. That's a huge draw normally. But in this case, we'd also be getting the ability to attack with Charisma. But Reckless Attack specifically says we need to be using Strength to attack with. So, again, there's not a lot there. We could still grab Hexblade's Curse. That's not the worst thing ever, right? It'll add some more damage. You know, we could be critting on a 19 or 20 while attacking recklessly. But overall, I think that there's probably a couple other stronger choices. One of those is the Fiend, but I've talked about Barbarian Fiend combinations before. And even though I really like the Fiend, those temporary hit points are awesome. Every time we're getting a killing blow, we get temporary hit points, right? It's very, very strong. But like I said, we've already talked about that before. So I figured I'd look at one of the other choices we have for making a decent melee warlock, and that's the Genie. And I think Genie is actually a very strong alternative as well. I also think Genie becomes an interesting choice because if we think we're going to get to level 6 or higher as a warlock, so, you know, now we're looking at 13 levels altogether, but that's not unheard of, you know. We're going to have our 5 Barbarian, 2 Paladin, now 6 Warlock. Elemental Gift at 6 for the Tao would have given us resistance to bludgeoning damage. And usually this is the premier choice. But because we're a Barbarian, Raging can already give us that. So I think that maybe either a Freet for fire resistance or Merid for cold resistance become a much stronger choice in this case. Just because there are other common damage types. You know, there's nothing wrong with either one of those. I think that their spell lists are decent. You know, the damage type themselves are a little more resistible, which is kind of a problem with our Bottled Respite ability, or our Genie's Vessel, I should say. But, you know, still not too bad. Anyways, like I said, Invocations, obviously level 3. I mean, we don't actually technically have to go Path to the Blade. I probably would just so I can get the Eldritch Smite. But, you know, you could go with, like, say, grabbing some Ritual Casting from Pact to the Tome or Cool Familiar from Pact to the Chain. Those can give you a lot of out-of-combat utility. And that is one of the problems we have with Barbarians as we get to higher and higher level. The Barbarian is amazing in combat and does very little outside of it. And so augmenting those type of things from our other casting classes is not a bad choice, but I feel like we can do a lot of that by picking some out-of-combat spells that we might want to cast, choosing some invocations to augment that as well, and then, you know, smiting harder. You know, whatever. Like I said, it's your choice, but personally, I mean, I will say this. Crit Fisher builds in general tend to not be the most efficient builds out there, right? And this is partly because you don't know when you got to get a crit, right? Like if I'm in a big fight, I can choose when I'm going to cast Wall of Force or when I'm going to cast Fireball or Hypnotic Pattern, right? I can choose as a Battle Master which maneuvers I want to use at what particular time. I can't choose whether or not I'm going to roll a 20 on one of my attack die, right? I'm just as likely to crit some minion who had 3 hit points left, and I was just like, oh, well, we'll just eliminate him so we don't have to worry about him. And then I get my crit on him, and then, you know, don't crit the big boss that I wanted to actually crit, right? That said, though, giant crits are fun. So, you know, personally, not every build has to be the most optimized thing out there. I'm playing the game for fun, and yes, to me, part of the fun is making good characters, right? Like if my character just sadly underperforms, I'm always going to be disappointed, and that's going to impact my fun, right? But I don't have to be the best and most awesome character at the table to have fun. But, you know, if I dropped, like, say, for just as an example, a 5th level Eldritch Smite with a 5th level Divine Smite using my Warlock spell slots on a crit, and I'm rolling 20 die 8 Smite damage in addition to all my weapon damage, that is fun. So, you know, just roll with it sometimes. You know, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't always have to be the greatest, most optimal thing. Sometimes fun matters more than anything else. Anyways, so like I said, if I'm only taking a couple levels of Warlock and the campaign's going to end, pick any of them. Dow becomes a very strong choice as usual. But if I think it's going to go high enough where I might want the elemental resistance of either fire or cold, then I think that, Merid and Ifrit both become very solid choices. Ifrit would also give us Fire Shield on our spellcasting list. I mean, granted, now you're looking at 7 levels of Warlock by the time that's available, right? In addition to your 7 levels of everything else. So, probably not the thing to build your character around, waiting for that level 14 ability, But just saying, it is a good option. Shadows of Moil would have been an option, but it requires concentration, so not as good of a choice in this case as Fire Shield would be. We're also going to have some nice spells like Armor of Agathis. We've already talked about Barbarians with Armor of Agathis, right? You can pre-cast it, lasts an hour, don't have to worry about concentration on it. You rage, now they're taking the full damage from your thorns, and you're taking half damage from their attacks, so the armor lasts twice as long. Very nice. I might want spells like Aid. I still like Aid. Aid's still a really good spell, right? But at this point in the game, we've got things like, hit point turrets, throwing out hit points every round, and, Twilight Clerics, throwing out hit points every round, and Peace Domain Clerics, where we just add all our hit points together into a giant pool and subtract as needed. So I think that the gain from Aid was a lot better in the early stages of the game before all the power creep started giving us, a lot of other options. But that being said, Aid isn't temporary hit points. It is just more hit points. So it still works well with all these other things as well. And, again, doesn't use concentration. But, I will be kind of starved on spell slots a lot. And, one problem with Warlock is that we're going to be stuck on 2 spell slots for the majority of our career at this point. So, there was always a short rest, right? But, I'm probably just going to smite. Anyways, let's take a look at feats. I've already mentioned Great Weapon Mastery. This one, again, you don't have to take it, but it's so much damage. And I'm using a Great Weapon anyway, probably, Especially when I took the Great Weapon Fighting Style, I'm using Great Weapon Mastery, I've got my Great Weapon, I'm recklessly attacking. So much good here to be gained from it. So I might as well grab that as well. Like I said, Polearm Mastery, if we have enough room for more ability score increases. One thing about this build is because I'm not really going to be casting any spells in combat, I can get away with only having, say, a 13 or 14 charisma, if that's how I want to go, right? I don't need to have, 16 plus charisma on this build. I can have my bare minimum to multi-class in or out of Paladin and Warlock, and just go strength mostly on top of that. But if we're looking at 2 levels of Paladin, plus our 5 levels of Barbarian, and then we go Warlock on top of that, we're going to be level 11 when we get our second ASI. Everybody else is going to be getting their third at 12. So, fitting in some strength boosts isn't going to be the easiest thing in the world right now. Now, we might want to just go Variant Human or Custom Lineage or something and start with the feat. That's not a bad choice. There's a part of me, though, that kind of likes the idea of maybe, maybe going with a Tiefling, especially if I can use some of the alternate Tiefling branches, like the Zerial's, whatever her brood is called, all the Zerial ones. I think they get strength and charisma. Perfect stats for us there. And, then we have resistance to fire damage, and maybe we go Merid and we get the cold damage. We got the Barbarian. We've got a lot of damage types covered. We're not even a Totem Warrior. We've got, half the damage types covered at least. That's not bad, But then we're, desperately hoping for strength increases and weapon feats. Other ones, Alert is always a pretty solid choice. I don't mind Sentinel. I don't know that I need Sentinel on this build, but if I can squeeze it in, it's not a bad choice. But I'd probably rather grab Polearm Mastery if I need that extra one. I'm not really concerned about things like, say, any of the casting ones. I'm not going to be using Spell Sniper because I'm not casting spells, really, So that's out. I'm not going to be worrying about Warcaster because I'm probably not concentrating on anything anyways, right? So who cares? So I'm probably going to be looking for more martial fighting styles or martial feats to like boost us more. And like I said, doing more damage, going faster in the initiative order, these are all good things. Attacking more often, also good things. So those are probably going to be where I'm going to be leaning towards. But anyways, that basically covers everything we have here. Like I said, my next video, we're going to take a look at combining Barbarian with Cleric. And this time we're going to actually take more Barbarian. We're not going to stick with the only 5. We're probably going to be taking a bunch more Barbarian plus some more Cleric. And I think that's going to be a fun build as well. I mean, I just love multi-classing in general. So this is going to be Zealot build A, and that one's going to be Zealot build B. A and B. There we go. So anyways, like I said, that's everything. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Leave me your comments in the comment section. Like I said, I read every comment, even if I don't always respond to them all. And one of my favorite things about having a YouTube channel is just, seeing what everybody else says in the comment section. There's always things that I forget, or things that people remind me of, or rules that, it says this way in the book, but sage advice has cleared this up. And, I haven't read every sage advice out there or memorized them all. I know a bunch of them, some of the more common rulings, but, there's always stuff you miss. I'm only human, just like everybody else is, right? Or I say something and then I catch it in editing, but then people who are just listening to it on their phone or whatever don't actually see that I put a note in there. And they're like, oh, you said this, but it's actually this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I mentioned it in text. But whatever. It happens, right? Like I said, I'm only human. You're only human. This is just all my opinion anyways. None of this is definitive. I think this is a fun build, but like I said, it does have a crit fisher aspect to it, which isn't always the most optimal way to build a character anyway. But like I said, optimization is awesome, but it's not the only thing in this game, right? I think this would be a really fun character to play, and there's some cool themes. So anyways, that's everything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.